when my brothers and sisters, the ones in charge of this program, request me to spare some time to share with you the little knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me about Sharia. Indeed, I feel so much grateful because you have created for me an opportunity to make my accountability before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we talk about Sharia, when we talk about a Sharia Islamic law, and we also talk about its relevance in our lives, I think that the entry point should be to appreciate that the greatest blessing that Allah has ever given to humanity, it is the blessing of the revelation of the Quran. If we talk about any greater blessing that Allah has ever given humanity, Quran comes as number one. This is testified by the Quranic verse where the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. The translation of that verse indicates that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the believers the greatest blessing when He chose to send to us a messenger, and that is none other than Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what message is being carried by Muhammad to us? Yatlu alayhim ayati. The Prophet is conveying to us the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and He also purifies them, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and He teaches them the book and the wisdom. The wisdom, according to the Mufassirun, it is the traditions of our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَإِن كَانُوا مِن قَبْلِ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Even if before that humanity was moving in total darkness, we are going astray. So the message of Quran, which is actually the main source of Sharia, it is the greatest liberation that Allah has given to humanity. How blessed are we as Muslims that the first message to be revealed in Quran is the message of Iqra. And that's why we are so proud that if you talk about the knowledge society today, the people of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we are at the center stage. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose that the first message is the message of Iqra, the message of read, that made a clear demarcation between ignorance of Jahiliyyah and the knowledge of Islam. So from that time onwards, it was no longer acceptable. It is not a justifiable excuse that you could act, you could conduct yourself in any way without knowledge. How blessed are we as Muslims? Umar radiyallahu anhu used to repeat that أعزنا الله بالإسلام ولو ابتغينا غيره أذلنا الله. Allah has made us superior because of Islam. And if we happen to seek any other system, apart from the system of Islam that is revealed in the Holy Quran, Allah will just make us amongst the lowest of the low, and we cannot afford that level. So I want to start my presentation by giving you an assurance that Sharia, or Shariatul Islamiyah, Islamic law, is the best system that is worth to be followed by humanity. Because of one thing, just to take it as a point, whatever Allah has permitted, because we are talking about Sharia. Sharia is about halal and haram. It's about conduct and misconduct. Whatever Allah has permitted, just know that it is for your own benefit. And whatever Sharia has prohibited, don't waste your time to look at some minor benefits. It is because Allah wanted to avoid harm, to avoid loss, to come at your side. And that's why, before we could talk about the relevance of Sharia in our lives, we need to ask ourselves a fundamental question. Do you think that the Sharia of Islam is compatible with our lives? Some of you happen to subscribe to the medical profession. You know those instances whereby certain drugs are being administered on a patient and the doctor says, sorry, the drugs are not responding. It means that the drugs are not compatible either with the blood system or with something to do with the system of that person. So before we could think about the relevance of Sharia, we need to ask ourselves, do you feel that this system of Sharia is compatible with us or it is not compatible? Does this system of Sharia has the capacity to address all our aspects, the social, the economic, the political, the spiritual, and others? I am here to confirm that yes. When you look at the characteristics of Sharia, and I just want to pick some of them, after understanding these characteristics, we shall be rest assured that Sharia has the capacity to address all our concerns. First of all, Sharia is divine. It was revealed from Rabbul Alameen. It is revealed from Allah. And by the fact that it is revealed from Allah, it means that it is exhaustive. Allah says, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Do you think that the one who created you might have revealed a system that cannot address all your aspects? Number two, Sharia is universal. It does not recognize any boundaries. That is why when we receive any visitor from any country, from any part of the world, and he leads us in Salah, all of us shall follow. We don't have a problem. But it might not be the same when you go to other faiths. Because the first challenge will be the language barrier. But see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has united this ummah and gave it the system of Sharia that is universal. So in the shopping language, you could say that Sharia is a one-stop center. Whatever you want, you will find it in Sharia. Another aspect that confirms to us that this system is compatible is the dynamism and simplicity of Sharia. Brothers and sisters in Islam, who said that Sharia is difficult to practice? Who brought that kind of misconception? When you look at the dictates of Quran and Sunnah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has confirmed that وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. When Allah chose for you Sharia, He didn't intend any difficulty to come on your side. Apart from this kind of difficulty, which is bearable, and we cannot afford to live in a life without difficulties. Any life without challenges is not worth to live. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for us Sharia, He chose for us the system that is simple to practice. I understand there are those situations of some people who want to present Sharia as a very difficult, as a harsh system, and they make life so difficult on their sides, and at the end of the day they break down. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna hadha ad-din yusr." This system of Sharia is simple. وَلَنْ يُشَادَّ أَحَدٌ هَذَا الدِّينُ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ. No one shall ever present the system of Islam with that kind of extremism, with that kind of radicalism, except the system itself shall defeat him. So the good news, here we are with a system that is compatible, that is dynamic, that is simple for us to practice. Another aspect, Sharia is solution-based. It is not problem-based. Sharia is there to provide solutions. That is why usually I tell my students of Sharia that the days of halal haram are no longer the days that we want about Sharia. Once you tell me that this is haram, I will ask you, what is the alternative? Just take it from me. Islam did not prohibit anything except it created an alternative. That's it. When Sharia says that azina muharram, fornication is prohibited, it creates a way on how you can spend your sexual desires. It says, go and marry. So it's not enough to ask me a question and I tell you, this is haram. After saying that this is haram, according to the rules of Sharia, you should ask, but what is the alternative? Because Sharia is there to provide for solutions. When we talk about Sharia, we are talking about the system that has enough capacity to address both the traditional and the contemporary issues. I understand of recent, all of us are just recovering from the challenges of COVID-19. Let me hear it from you. What is that system that provided genuine solutions for COVID pandemic, apart from the system of Islam? It is only the system of Islam which talked about the social distancing. It is only the system of Islam whereby we find Umar radiallahu anhu narrating that whenever you hear such pandemics taking place in a certain place, the people of that particular place should not leave, and then people who are found outside, they should not join. That is only found in Islam. Of recent, I think between February, March of this year, you know, when the whole country almost, it was in the challenge of DNA paternity testing. It created a lot of problems. Fathers were fidgeting to take their children so that they can test and prove whether these are biological children or not. Tell me the system that provided solutions for that. I was once addressing a congregation about DNA, and I told them, DNA does not bring any news to the Islamic faith. There is nothing new. During the era of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a man came and said, Ya Rasulallah, inna zawji aw inna imra'ati kad waladat ghulaman aswada. A man came and told the Prophet, Ya Rasulallah, my wife has given birth to a black child. Both of them are Arabs. When the Prophet read the intention of this person, his intention was to disown the child. How can the black be an offspring of an Arab? But the Prophet just told him to draw near. He asked him, Hal laka min ibil? But do you have camels? He said, yes. Qala ma alwanuha? Tell me about their colors. He said, humur, they are red. The Prophet asked, Alaysa fiha min awraq? Don't you have some with a gray color? He said, yes, I have just recalled. Some of them are of gray color. Then the Prophet asks, how did the red ones, the majority, give birth to those ones of a gray color? The man said, لَعَلَّهُ نَزَعَهُ عِرْقٍ. Maybe they traced that kind of color from their forefathers. So the Prophet told him, how do you know if your forefathers, some of them were black in color? So the Prophet never allowed him to disown the child. Today when we talk about DNA, we are talking about the genotype. Those ones of you who have background of biology, you know the difference between the phenotype and the genotype. And the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was the first one to lay foundation for that. So DNA is not new. How many centuries that have passed since the demise of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Today the world is talking about the assisted reproductive technologies. You know the challenges that we have in normal birth, whereby you find a couple, it cannot get a child through the normal system. And subhanallah, we take things for granted. You think that the moment you get a better choice of a husband or a wife, then you go into sexual intercourse, then fertilization takes place, then after that you produce a child. Because that is a normal system, we happen not to attach any importance to it. Until when Allah gives you a trial, you spend years without a child, that's when you appreciate that the power of creation belongs to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we talk now, sperm clinics have been opened. As we talk now, we are talking about fertility clinics. What is that system that has addressed that matter by going back to its fundamentals? It is Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Mu'minun, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ إِلَّا عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرْ مَلُومِينَ. When the Quran, when the Sharia organizes the system of reproduction, it is just one statement. And those who take good care of their privacy, their private parts, and they don't spend their sexual intercourse except with their wives or those ones whose right hands possess. That verse is sufficient to address any assisted reproductive technology that will come later. Because we shall just ask, is this your wife? Yes. If that is your wife, then it is acceptable to have an ovum from her being fertilized with your sperm. Then it can be taken in the test tube. After that, it can be implanted back into the uterus, and the child that comes out of that is a legitimate child. If at all we happen to have a third party being involved, these days, especially women, Some 3 weeks back, one of the graduates of this university, a female, among the first batches, she had spent in marriage many years without a child. And the husband is saying that, why don't we go for surrogacy? The surrogacy arrangement. How does surrogacy works? The challenge with this woman is that her uterus cannot sustain pregnancies. As they settle, they get out as a result of miscarriage. So what is the medical solution? Let us get the ovum from her, being fertilized by the sperm by the husband, then we get another woman to carry. After the period of pregnancy, that woman can surrender the child to this couple. What is the position of Islam to that? It is only the system of Sharia that provides solution to that. You don't have a relationship with a surrogate mother, therefore that kind of system is not acceptable. This takes me to share with you some of the Sharia relevancy in our aspects. Let us address around 3 areas in the interest of time. Number 1, the spiritual aspect. When we talk about the spiritual aspect, we are talking about your relationship with the Creator. We are talking about your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once you maintain that relationship, once you follow the system of Sharia, vis-a-vis your connection and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the assurance is, even if the whole world turns against you, even if you find out that you are alone, you should just know that that connection is your liberator. It is sufficient. Listen to this beautiful hadith narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas about the Sharia regulation of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abdullah bin Abbas says, كنت خلف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Once I was boarding the same camel with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, Ya ghulam, young man, inni uallimuka kalimatin. I'm going to instruct to you or to teach you some words. Ihfadhillaha yahfadhuk. Take good care of Allah, Allah will take good care of you. Ihfadhillaha tajiduhu tijahak. Always be conscious of Allah. At any time you need Him, He shall be on your side. Idha sa'alta fas'alillah. I understand we are in a life of challenges, the life of endless needs. Idha sa'alta fas'alillah. If you were to ask, you should ask who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa idha sta'anta fasta'in billah. If you are seeking support, you are seeking assistance, ask it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet tells Abdullah bin Abbas, and the message is all of us, is for all of us. He says, wa'alam, please take note, anna al-ummah, that the entire nation, لو اجتمعت على أن ينفعوك بشيء, if the entire nation comes together so that they can benefit you over something, لن ينفعوك إلا بشيء قد كتبه الله عليك. Just to know that they cannot help you, it cannot benefit you apart from something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided for you. Likewise, If the entire community conspire against you so that you can be hurt, so that you can be affected, they cannot affect you with something except what the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He has decided for you. The young generation needs to appreciate these concepts. We are living in a world of stress. And when it comes to my sisters, hadith wala haraj. How do you accept the stress of the so-called hysteria? How do you accept someone to be somewhere and he stresses you because he has cut off the love relationship with you? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there, you cannot accept that. In the life of challenges that we are in, Sharia comes to regulate your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I just want to quote one instance where if you keep a good relationship with Allah, Allah will come to your rescue. It is reported authentically that during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the companions, he was doing what we call mudaraba. Mudaraba is a system of an Islamic banking whereby you don't have the capital, but you have the skills. So you come to me as the capital owner, and I give you the capital. You go and buy the products or the items and start moving around with them. You sell them. At the end of the day, you come back and we distribute profits according to an understanding between me and you. So one companion during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was moving with trade merchandise until when he was passing into a desert, then one robber intercepted him. And he said, I'm taking away the products, I'm taking away the items, and above that, I'm also taking away your life. The situation is very tense. There are only two. Who can really come to his rescue? Apart from his maintenance of the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This companion says, please allow me some few minutes so that I can connect to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Give me an allowance of just 2 minutes so that I can perform 2 units, 2 rakas. This armed robber said, it doesn't matter how many units you will perform them. After that, I will have to take you on. The man performed the 2 rakas. It is reported that فَلَمَّا كَانَ فِي مَوْضِعِ السُّجُودِ, when he has put his head, his forehead on ground during sujood, he started repeating the ayah in Surah An-Naml, أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ وَيَجْعَلُكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ أَإِلَٰهٌ مَّعَ اللَّهِ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. How I wish all of us should memorize that verse. It is the verse that you can use in such a trial moment when there is no anyone expected to come to your rescue. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ. The man repeats and says, who is that can come to the rescue of a person in such a tight situation? وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ, and he takes away the difficulty. وَيَجْعَلُكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ, and he makes you the vicegerents of this world. أَإِلَٰهٌ مَّعَ اللَّهِ, is there anyone apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Subhan al-Khaliq. When this man just concluded the 2 rakas, he made salam on the right, salam on the left. He saw the armed robber in a bloodbath. And besides, there is another man standing with a sword, meaning that the one standing is the one who has killed the armed robber. So this companion asks, How comes that you have come here? And from where? He says, Innama ana malakum minas sama. I'm an angel from the heaven. When you used that verse, I asked permission from Allah so that I can come for your rescue. How beautiful is it to maintain the Sharia relationship with our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are some of the lessons? Please keep in touch with Allah. Your life should always be closer to the mosque. Pick some of the verses of the Quran that you can use in trial moments. Special message to you ladies. I understand these days finding a suitable husband is also another challenge. It happened with one woman who had looked for a suitable husband for so long. You know, when I was still giving some lectures here, I used to tell you that please try as much as possible to benefit from time. When you are in first year and someone comes to you, don't ignore. I'm serious. When you are in first year and you look at the beauty surrounding you, you think that you still have many opportunities. Who tells you? Now, as you go to second year, those ones who are having interest in you, the number is going down. So if you are having like 10 in first year, then you have like a 3 in second year. So scarcity had already started. As you go to third year and you see that you are actually about to graduate, you really don't find any man proposing you, not even by a mere joke. Now, as you see that you are in the second term of your second semester of your third year, you wake up at night and you say, you know, previously in first year when we ask you, what is your checklist? Subhanallah, it is a whole exercise book. I want a man who is this, who is that, who is this, who is that. You even start mentioning things that are beyond expectations. Now, as you go to second year, you decrease on the list of requirements. Third year, you cut it down to 0. As you are about to graduate, you wake up at night and say, oh Allah, any man. Now I'm no longer having any issue. Oh Allah, any man. Now this challenge can be addressed by keeping your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is narrated that one woman had that kind of a trial. At 35, she had not gotten somebody to propose her. And she was almost losing hope. Until one person advised that strengthen your relationship with Allah. She said, I have done it all. Until when another colleague advised, why don't you go and perform Umrah? Because you know the significance of Kaaba. You know the significance of the dua that is made around Kaaba. This woman asked the parents to support her, and indeed she went for Umrah. After Tawaf, that is circumambulating around Kaaba, she sat around and she raised her hands before Allah. And she used Surah Al-Duha. She used Surah Al-Duha. Do you memorize it? Do you know it? Have you ever taken time to contemplate about its meaning? She chose to start from وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has never left you alone. That is the verse she chose to use in order to make this application. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. The challenges that you are going through, they are just minor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing for you what is better. And this is the most important. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Your Lord shall give you and you shall be contented. When Allah decides to give, He suffices. When Allah decides to give, He shall make you satisfied. When this woman concluded her ibad of Umrah and she took the plane back to her country, can you imagine that among the people who came to welcome her at the airport, there was one man who expressed interest in her, and that was the end of her supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to keep that relationship. Let me, in the interest of time, talk about the Sharia relevance in our social lives. In our social lives, we are talking about the horizontal connection with our fellow brothers and sisters. We are in this university. We need each other. We don't have to undermine each other. We don't have to despise others. The principle of Islam on the connection between you and your colleague. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu la yaskhar qawmun min qawm. O you who believe, let not some people ridicule others. Asa an yakuna, asa an yakunu khayran minhum. The people you despise, you never know, they can actually be better than you. Wala nisa'an min nisa'in asa an yakunna khayran minhun. After talking about people generally, in a special way addressed women, that women don't despise yourselves, don't despise others. So, it goes without saying that in our social relationship, we need to keep that relationship whereby we are all in need of others. Sometimes we happen to undermine others because of the way how you look like. I always tell my Sharia students, if you are of such a commendable height, American height, and you feel so proud of that, how did you know that you were tall if the short people were not in existence? How did you know? You can only appreciate your height by comparison. So it means that the short people matter in your life. If you are despising others because you are brown, how did you know that you are brown when they are no black? So it means that you need a person with a dark skin in order to be proud that, mashallah, you are brown. When it comes to that, I want to narrate to you just two instances to show that Sharia regulates our relationship and we should always be keeping it cool with others. Hal atakum naba Julaybib. Have you ever heard about the story of a man known as Julaybib? Julaybib is a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But with due respect to him, he was not looking well. I don't want to use the term that he was ugly, because he's a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that's it. To an extent, he used to be what you call kangarana. That's it. With due respect, I'm not saying this to undermine his status at all. The status of the Sahaba is above. But I just want to bring it out so that you can appreciate it. Whenever companions could have issues with children who are not keeping in order in terms of their moral system, they will say, we shall invite Julaybib here, he shall eat you. Until the time, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to have a culture that whoever would have a daughter due for marriage, he could go and consult the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for a suitable husband. So, there is a certain family which had a beautiful daughter, and that daughter was due for marriage. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam learned about it, he told that family, the father, that I want to propose from your family. He called the father and said, I'm proposing from your family. I'm proposing that daughter. When the father picked this message, his heart was full of happiness. Do you understand what it means that the prophet is proposing from your family? He said, oh, the Prophet, we have already given our consent. We have already accepted. When he took the news to the mother said, Na'am aw na'amain. Yes or yes times 2. We have already accepted. The Prophet said, I'm not the one proposing. I'm proposing on behalf of Julaybib. The story changed. Said, no. If it is Julaybib, no. Julaybib is well known. The daughter that was due for marriage, she was hearing the discussion behind the curtain until when she came out and said, you people, the Prophet proposes from you and you reject. It doesn't matter the person coming, but this person is coming and behind him is the blessing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She said, Khudhuni ila Rasulillah. For me, you take me to the Prophet, I don't mind what kind of a person he will decide for me to be my husband. This beautiful daughter accepted to marry Julaybib. After a few days, the Prophet calls for jihad, and Julaybib goes for jihad, fighting in the holy war. And Allah decided that he was among those who were killed. After the war, the Prophet used to have a practice of asking, do we have all our people? He could count those who are alive and those who are dead. And he asked them, Atafqiduna ahadan? Are you missing anyone? They said, Ya Rasulullah, when we look into ourselves, everyone is around. We know those who are alive, and even the dead, we have seen them. The Prophet said, no. وَلَكِنَّنِي أَفْقِدُ جُلَيْبِيبَ. But for me, I'm missing Julaybib. The search started. They started looking for him until when they actually found him, he was killed amidst other non-believers. It is reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam carried him single-handedly. He is the only companion that got the honor of being carried by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was dead. He carried him until when the grave was dug and he himself laid him in the grave. After that, the Prophet said, whoever wants the success of this world and the hereafter, he should follow the path of Julaibib. Now this daughter, who in the first instance had been taken by Julaibib and nobody would like to be taken by such, she became a subject of competition. All companions now started competing who should win her. Why have I brought this? وَلَا يَسْخَرْ قَوْمٌ مِّنْ قَوْمٍ. Never look at the way how you look like and you start despising others. Still, when we talk about the social relationship, we need to maintain good relationship with our parents. I understand that it is a challenge. We need to maintain a good relationship with our brothers, with our sisters. Out of this, I just want to bring just one element. When I'm your brother, please take good care of me, and I'm also taking good care of you. Let us learn from the story of Maryam alayha salatu wassalam. When Maryam gave birth to Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, you know, people started saying that she committed zina. They came around and they said, Ya ukhta Harun, or the sister of Harun, ما كان أبوك امرأ سوء وما كانت أمك بغية. Or the sister of Harun, your mother, your father was not known to be a person of bad character, and your mother was also not known to be in such lines. Our learned scholars concluded out of this that as a brother, I must take good care of my sister. Because whatever you do as my sister, it either upgrades me, it raises my status, or it despises me, or it lowers my status. And this is a food for thought. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, as a young sister, within your social lifestyle, please take good care of your status. I understand that this stage is a tempting one, but I always tell the young generation, young women like you, what is that man has done to qualify to access your privacy? Just tell me. What is that he has done in order to qualify to access your private life? Apart from deceiving, apart from some stories, apart from promises that are not materializing. So please take good care of that. On the side of young men, I understand these days, fornication, adultery, and so on, it is not a serious business. But let me just give you a simple story that should give you a position of respecting our young sisters at this side. One of the Salihin, the righteous people, his son was going for further studies. Before going, he called him and he told him, please, my son, take good care of your sister. But the sister is remaining with the father. So the boy was like, I'm leaving the sister with you. How do you tell me that I should take care of her? The father repeated, I have said, take good care of your sister whenever you are going. The young boy left, and he was going to a country that is full of luxuries, discos and so on. So at one moment he was also tempted to go to these discos, and you know what takes place there? You know? He started the pairing, this one handling this member of the opposite sex, and when he saw others doing, he said that he can't afford to be the odd man out. He had one young woman, and they isolated somewhere, and he just had a kiss. After that, the session was over. After concluding his studies, he goes back home. And as they were seated in the garden, he saw the garden boy, how do you call him? Shamba boy, isolating with the sister. And the man was filled with a lot of anger. How can that Shamba boy isolate with my sister? The father told him, just cool down. He shall not do anything to her except what you did to sisters of others. فَكَمَا تَدِينُ تُدَانُ. The same way you treat others, just wait for they call it reciprocity. How people are going to pay back. So the best way of taking care of your sister, I'm talking about you young men, please respect sisters of others. Wallahi al-azim, if you play around with sisters of others, other people will come and play around with your sisters. Finally, that is how Sharia regulates our social conduct. The discussion would have been long, but I want to end with this. In a life of temptation, in a life whereby, as Allah said, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ. Always our minds, our souls are telling us to commit what is not acceptable according to Sharia. Please recall the example of Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. That's what I want to leave you with as far as the relevancy of Sharia in regulating our spiritual and our social lives. I understand we live in a world of temptation. But remember, when Yusuf was faced with that kind of situation, as Allah said, وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, and she closed all the doors. وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ, and she said, I'm ready for you. What did Yusuf do? قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ. He remembered his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that, إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَايَ. It is my Lord who had done a lot of good for me. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. In any way, the wrongdoers cannot succeed. Our discussion would have extended to other aspects, the social, the economic, the political, but in the interest of time, allow us to stop here. Inshallah, when Allah gives us another opportunity, we shall add on from there. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Qibla Islamic Media. Qibla Islamic Media.